Hello, everyone. Welcome to Galactalloy again.
Excelsior.
Good day.
Our two-part of the continuation of our Halloween special, because today we are going to be talking about Dead Space 2.
The best Dead Space.
According to some.
So
yes.
excited to talk about this game.
Oh,
I'm
So-
Tyler.
Gosh.
Hello. I'm Alex, and yes, this is Tyler, and we have Scott with us again here today.
Big boy Scott.
And we're going to officially say that Scott is going to be the new co-host with me co-hosting as well. We'll be the new permanent figures here, and Tyler is going to be taking his leave from the podcast. He may still join us. He's going to join us for one more episode, and he may still join us from time to time. But technically, he is no longer a mainstay on the
Official
podcast.
guest spot.
Yeah,
Permanent guest spot.
And I would like to thank you guys for the opportunity. And sucks to be used, Tyler, but you know.
That's
I mean,
okay.
Well, we greatly appreciate. I mean, I had a lot of fun
We're
doing
gonna
the
get
last
all
episode.
your success after I leave.
It's gonna be all Scott over here.
Yep.
It's gonna be all me. I'm bringing all. Can you smell that?
Is that what the Rock is cooking?
No, it's the scent of change.
Oh, gotcha.
I thought you just forgot to take a bath.
Oh Lord. No, you know what I smell?
I do have a fart brewing. So.
Oh no. It's gonna smell like straight necromorph.
My God. Well, with that, yeah, let's get into the smell of
What-
rotting corpses on a space station.
What is this whole thing about Dead Space 2 not being the best Dead Space?
Okay, so according to some, I didn't say it was or not. So okay,
Fight me in the streets.
Well, hold on. Back it up a second.
Sorry.
Thank you for listening to Galactalloy. Please visit our social medias. We got the Facebooks and the Twitters and the all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna try to work on making some YouTube shorts and things like that too. We're on YouTube, so thank you for wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. You can get us wherever you get all the main ones you get your podcast from. The iHeartRadios, the Google Podcast, Spotify, a ton of big ones. So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, pop it on while you're doing chores or just driving.
Driving to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an easy listen.
Play Dead Space, excuse me, and listen to Dead Space 2 while you're playing Dead Space 1. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take away from the audio of Dead Space 1.
Well, not just that, but this is going to be probably even heavier spoiler territory for the game and the story as a whole.
Listen,
So-
I'm gonna be honest with you. This should not be any holds bar episode. This one is too good.
Find us at Galactalloy, it's Galactalloy, and we do video game reviews. So yes, let's jump into Dead Space 2, the second one. So obviously these guys, you're not going to get a very critical review from them. They're already all up their own butts about.
No.
No,
It's definitely going to
Listen.
be critical.
listen. The game is amazing and it is a huge work of art. But to say that it's like flawless would be
Yeah.
little too much.
Well, I
It's
have
not
a
without
hard
its
time
quirks.
saying any game is perfect. I mean,
Right.
anything at all in life is. I mean, there are some things I would say come as close to perfect as you could be. But I mean, that's part of the whole idea too. Is like nothing is perfect. We should always be working to improve because there's always something you could do better. And it's not necessarily looking at what you did wrong as like a failure or a mistake, but just a learning opportunity to do better in the future. Kind of thing.
Truth.
Well, because the biggest criticism against this game is the multiplayer.
Well, no.
The multiplayer,
mean,
so
it
it's hard to
wasn't-
talk about the multiplayer now in 2022 because it doesn't even work anymore at
I
all.
have
Can
no
you
idea. I don't think so.
can you
The
play
servers
locally
are
or
down.
anything?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
No.
So-
Last time I tried to play, which was I want to say back in 2020, you could not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was
We-
just no.
We played it a bunch when it first came out,
Yeah.
and because
I mean, it's good old fashioned Dead Space gameplay.
I don't know if I would call myself a fan as large as Tyler or Scott over here of Dead, but I did love Dead Space, and I played it like a year after it came out. It was a little while, but I loved it so much that I went and pre-ordered Dead Space 2 because I got the awesome one with the plasma cutter
little
toy
mini
thing
thing.
and stuff.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we played when it first came out. Tyler got it as well. You pre-ordered it too, didn't you? Have the
so.
physical and all that?
Yeah.
So we played a bunch of I remember the multiplayer being pretty fun. Now, okay, was it perfect or the best multiplayer ever? I mean, I don't know. Obviously not, considering it's not still going and there's not, you know, a MLG league or anything of it.
Yeah, because
but
it was an asymmetrical first-person like cooperative shooter kind of thing. You had one side that played as necromorphs, and there was I don't even know how many there were, and there was one side that played as survivors, and you were trying to complete objectives.
But I remember having a lot of fun with it. I mean, it was especially fun to play as the necromorphs, I thought.
It was kind of like Evolve before Evolve was a thing.
It was just so unbalanced, though. Like you died. Like I get you die really quick as a necromorph, like you do in the campaign, but like it was so honestly in favor of the humans that it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, like the necromorphs didn't have anything like game breaking.
Yeah,
like
if you could become, there was one I remember that was really annoying. It's like if you could get the spitter guy. What do they call it? Are they called spitter or no? What are they called? The ones that shoot the acid.
Oh, like the vomiter guys?
Yeah, the vomiter guys.
Yeah.
I remember like if you could get him, he was pretty annoying. Could you even play as him? Yeah. I don't remember now because I thought you could
play as a standard
because you could slow
the baby one.
Yeah, you could be the baby and jump around on the walls.
The babies were the greatest for me. Yeah. It was like because you just find a nice little corner to.
I want to say. That was pretty much it, though.
Yeah, I think it was only 3. I think there was a DLC they added later. It was a free update where they released new maps, and there was like a new necromorph. But I think we had to stop playing by the time that it had come out.
Definitely.
So
I would love to bring up this point for this game because Dead Space 1, as we talked about, had that twinkle twinkle little star, real quiet, spooky commercial. This one had literally their selling point was your mom will hate this game.
Your mom hates Dead Space.
Yeah,
one of the greatest, if not the greatest, video game campaign I've ever seen in my life. It's so great.
It was so awesome.
I don't remember.
Oh,
dude,
you never see? Go to YouTube.
It was literally like they would get all these moms to sit there and talk about this game, and they were like, "Who would play games like this? People with mental problems."
Yeah, they got this one lady. She's like German or something, and she's like, "This is the downfall of society. This is why society is crumbling because of things like this."
Oh, wow.
And it was hilarious.
I don't even remember any of that.
Oh my god, just good. Yeah, just look up. Your mom hates Dead Space too.
Yeah.
And
like literally, that was in order for you to find out like updates for the game and whatnot. Literally, you would type in www.yourmomhatesthisgame.com.
Oh wow!
They had that one lady on there. She's
Woo!
Look at that monster! Dude, it was great. This is the best.
They were so. It was like old grandmas too. There was no like. They were just like, oh my god, what is that? Is that a baby? That's, oh my god!
Wow,
incredible.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
but
just do yourself a favor if you're listening. Google your mom
Definitely.
hates Dead Space 2.
Dude.
But so to get into the beginning of it, right at the beginning, because the first thing I always do at any video game is I always play with the options and things like that. And as we discussed in the last episode, I always see, if you can tweak settings to be, I got to tweak my microphone. All of a sudden it's loose and flopping around.
that's what she said.
God, I look up at Tyler and just a little totally
listen,
lost.
I wasn't gonna, but I'm glad you did.
I am the Michael Scott of this podcast.
Gonna get canceled. Podcast over. You can't make that as jokes in 2022.
Oh, that's true.
GTFO.
Hey, I'm leaving anyway, so there you go. Cancel
The problem's leaving with him.
Yeah.
There we go.
I've always been
We
the
might
problem.
make it. We might make it.
So as I was saying, I always go through the options and menus, and I look at what the extras and stuff are. And one thing that I'm kind of ambivalent about is the previously on Dead Space 2. Did you guys look at that one?
I did not. I saw it, but I didn't watch it.
I actually can say I've never watched it.
Really? It's one of those things where it's a cool idea that I wish that more video game sequels would actually do, because games take a couple of years to come out, and it's not like a movie. So like, say if you're going to go watch the sequel to, I don't know, The Matrix, right? If you want to rewatch The Matrix 1, that's like an hour and a half, 2 hours of your life. You can plop it in real quick
before you go to the theater.
Yeah, you can watch it that morning before, but to sit down, because we talked about how Dead Space is only like 9 hours.
Yeah.
But if you have a life, that could be a couple of weeks, because you might only be able to play like an hour here or two every couple of days or whatever.
Right.
So to have that little trailer thing of like, this is what happened in the last game, I think is a cool idea, but then also the way that they executed it, like when you actually watch the video, it's like, like it could have been done a little better.
Yeah.
But it was still
It was
just like
really
a
grainy,
neat
right?
concept. Well,
It's one of those like it jumps around like
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like the beginning of Dead Space 3.
well, and it shows you things that happen, but it doesn't give you any like real context. I mean, it does explain. It does have like a little narrator that says, a little bit about like, in the year of this, people were mining that, and this ship was doing that. So like, it does explain stuff a little bit, but at the same time, it's one of those where it's like, I almost wish they gave you even less. I don't know. Like I said, that's why I feel ambivalent about it, because I feel like Dead Space 1 should really be played if you're going to play Dead Space 2. And if you're going to have a previously on, it kind of needs to tell you everything so you know what's going on in Dead Space 2.
Right.
Well, originally, Dead Space 1 was only on Xbox. It wasn't initially on PS3. That came later.
Yeah.
So, Dead Space 2, however, did come straight to PS3. So that kind of was mainly for...
To bridge the gap a little bit.
to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of games that were on Xbox that did come out later for the other systems. But of course, the first game, it still was exclusive to their system. So they gave the previously, blah, 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 this and that.
Yeah.
But But by the time I played Dead Space 2, I did play Dead Space 1 on Xbox.
Yeah.
So...
Well, so I don't know. It was just one of those where I was like, I thought it was a neat idea.
Yeah.
But then the next thing I would say is just like the opening of the game is just like, run. Like, what is happening? Because
Yeah.
it shows you a few things.
They take the
and then
running
it's,
from the first one and like amplify.
yeah, to a whole new, because it shows you a couple things, and then it's like, dude's like, Isaac, wake up. We have to get out of
But
here.
Isaac
And then,
actually has a personality this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest changes is now Isaac talks.
yeah.
Yeah. I will bring it up since, in Dead Space 1, his silence was like my biggest thing. So I will bring it up.
Yeah, you went
He
on
now
about like
he has a voice now. But the thing is, I do love the attitude they gave him because, he has experience with necromorphs now. He's not like that guy we met in the first one who's like freaking out like everybody else. He's like, oh, look, it's them.
Yeah. I was like,
Again.
Yeah.
this again.
So,
that whole that San Andreas meme, like, oh shit, here we go again.
exactly.
Because like
That was Isaac.
yeah, you get like a quick scene of him being interrogated by a doctor, a therapist, whatever. You don't really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it gives you no context. You're thrust in this situation. The guy's trying to rescue
People
you.
are dying.
Yeah, people like it's like, oh my god, this wherever you are is under attack, and then all of a sudden the infector comes around and blah, into the dude's
And
head.
he just
and
stabs
it's
straight
like,
him as he like holding you.
and it's so much more visceral games, haha. But it's so much more like bloody and just like the guy splits open in front of you and, it's like, "Rah!" and you're
Yeah.
like, holy
It doesn't pull any
shit."
punches. It
Yeah,
goes
they-
right in.
Which is funny because if you actually played the standalone game, that hacking game, I think that was-
Ignition.
Ignition.
Yeah, I talked
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually his story.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh.
You see how he gets to the point where he's at because
Well, no, Ignition is on the Ishimura when things are going.
then it's the
No, I'm sorry. It's not on the Ishimura. It's on the Straw.
Sprawl.
Sprawl. Sorry, it's on the Sprawl. But you're playing as two other.
No, you play
Okay.
one is him and one is his.
Does
the
it
other
later? Okay,
person.
so to be fair, I played it for like 45 minutes and turned it off.
Yes.
So
Because
I don't know what the
it's
ending is. I know
horrible.
how it opens up with the two other, or the engineer and the other policewoman or whatever, and they're going to fix stuff. But okay, so that is a good
I don't even
example.
remember.
All right, so it's a puzzle game,
It's been
right?
a long time since I played any of the
And-
DLC.
Horrible puzzle game.
Some of the puzzles are fine, but the one is where you got to like, it's like a 2D side scrolling shooter kind of thing where you got to like escape the other lines or beat them. It's awful, right? And then you have the one where you got to what is it? Where you send troops from one side to the other kind of thing, and you have to
Oh,
send
yeah,
out different
yeah.
types of troops. I can't think of it, but it's okay. And then you have the mirror
Tower
game.
defense.
Yeah, like a tower defense. Yeah. And then you have the mirror game where you have to line up lasers, right? And it's okay. Like, I mean, it's fine as a puzzle to figure out. But the big thing about it is, so this runs into, like I said in the first, I'm calling it the Halo effect, even though I know many other properties did it before Halo. But they just started pumping out more crap, like all the movies and the books, and some of them were okay and some of them weren't. And they were just like, let's just squeeze more out of the series, because it's like
That game, Ignition, honestly should not have the Dead Space like labeled. It was just like, hey, we have this game. What do we do with it? Dead Space. Okay.
I mean, at least it has a subtitle, so you know it's not like. I mean, but technically it happens in the world of. But it's one of those like.
That's the stage for Dead Space 2.
If you're thinking though that you need to play Ignition, or you don't,
No.
don't play it.
No,
Don't touch it. It's awful. It looks like baby's first Flash game.
Oh wow.
Like it, I know, and it's
so
not
bad.
even. It's so terrible that it's not just like it was animated poorly. It wasn't animated at all. They took still pictures.
Yeah, it's like comic book.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
wow.
comic book panels, but then in Photoshop, like warped parts of their bodies to kind of seem like they changed position, but there's an actual no motion, no true animation. It's like I said, it's like if I were trying to put
It's
a
like a
game
mobile
on
game.
Newgrounds.
It's like a mobile
It's
game.
worse than it's like Newgrounds in like 2005, whenever Newgrounds first started, and no one knew how to use Flash Player. And you know, like every once in a while you have a gem, but it was a sea of garbage that was put on the internet. It's that bad.
Oh, wow.
It's awful.
It's so bad.
Like I could probably today, with the way that not PowerPoint, but Photoshop works, learn in a day how to make better animation that's in this thing.
Literally, that one game, however, sets the stage for Dead Space 2, and it touches bases on the DLC that came for
Severed.
Dead Space.
Yeah. But okay, so that little tangent aside, Ignition's awful. Don't play it.
No,
Don't waste your money on it. Don't even waste your
Watch
it's
a
free.
video.
Yeah. Well, like it's
Watch a
free
video.
on EA or Game Pass or whatever. And I tried it just because we were playing Dead Space games. Oh, I've never played them. Let me see what it's like. Don't do it. It's trash.
It's not even worth it.
Yeah, don't waste your
So
time.
there's our review on Dead Space Ignition.
Yeah, thank you for joining us
welcome
for our
back
Dead
to
Space
Dead
edition.
Space 2.
I'm sorry, it had to be
Sorry,
said.
I
Be
know.
brought up. Like
The tangent
it's
came
so
out,
bad.
and it's so bad.
I had to say that it's funny because most of the time we usually avoid like spin-offs and things.
Yeah.
Like in Halo, there's so many games we couldn't talk about all of them. But like, yeah, it makes sense why.
Like I said,
they
I
had
just
be mentioned.
happened to try it because we were playing them. It was free, but it's like it's
Yeah.
not even
It-
worth it being free. It's not worth the space on your hard drive.
Literally, the only reason we bring it up is because it gives enough information that is
Yeah.
relevant to Dead Space.
But
2.
again, watch a synopsis
Yeah,
on YouTube.
literally,
or
just watch a
something.
video.
Yeah.
And literally, if you really wanted to make it streamlined, I know you can find a video where it takes all the cutscenes and mush them all together, and then it just goes cutscene to cutscene to
Yeah.
cutscene.
Yeah,
So because it's the fastest way.
if you just want to get the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting back into Dead Space 2.
Yes.
Opens up, run.
Blows up.
Yeah,
in
blows
front
up.
of you, like almost literally. But I was going to mention, how do you take the escape sequence, the run sequence from the first one,
And make it better?
Make it better is he's in a straitjacket, so
Yeah,
it's
he
like
can't do
you-
anything.
He literally
Not-
has no arms.
Yeah, not only do you have to run, but you have absolutely no way of defending yourself at this point.
Like you said, he learned how to
Mm-hmm.
handle necromorphs. So how do you make it where he's helpless against the necromorphs?
Yeah.
Which is a great, idea. The only question I have is how does he open doors?
The security
His brain.
protocol actually opened all the doors.
No, but literally, how does he?
Oh, it's
You
like
have
from
to-
the first game. It's like
Okay, so like you hit it's a button.
I got
prompt.
it. I know. I have the answer.
What?
He has buttons in his helmet that he hits with his tongue.
He doesn't have a helmet on though. He's in a straitjacket, no helmet.
I'm saying like in the previous
Oh,
game when he's opening doors.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, okay, that's my thing. In the first game, yeah, you have to hit A, it's a button prompt, whatever. But you figure like, oh, it's a computer, he's got a thing, or is it in the rig in his head? You know what I mean? Like he tells
Yeah.
a door to open. Because I mean, in a straitjacket, if he
Which
doesn't
is-
have access to any of his things, or if it's a button on the door, like
He's
how
got
does he?
bio scans, I guess. Like he's an engineer.
I just thought it was funny that you're running around like this, and I'm just like, how did he open the door? Like,
The funny thing is, he still has his rig on.
Yeah.
well,
It's
the
like-
rigs are on everything.
Like, is it grafted into their bodies?
I think the rig. Yeah, the rig is.
I want to say the
your
spine part is like, if I remember correctly,
Yeah, it's part
like
of your body.
It's infused into your
because
biomechanics.
when you see all the normal citizens walking around, you look at
Mm-hmm.
their backs. Like most of them have rigs.
yeah,
As well.
and then I think
Yeah.
the suits just plug into the rig or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
So it's like,
But not
oh,
everybody
here's your
has a
new
rig.
baby boy. There you go.
yeah.
they probably, I don't know, they probably wait until at least adulthood. That way they don't have to keep fitting one every couple of years. Can you imagine like having to buy a new pair of shoes, like getting a new rig upgrade every 6 months as a kid? Hey kid, we're gonna put you through this horrible surgery every 6 months.
Anyway. Yeah.
But
Off topic. Like, have you ever played Surge?
The surge, yeah, it's
Pretty much that's what it is.
yeah. Okay, I got you.
So bad.
But right off the bat, one thing that I really like about Dead Space 2 is Dead Space 2 did a lot of good examples of foreshadowing, right? So like right in the beginning, that I don't remember, I can't remember exactly what it was on, but he's like the eye. Oh man, like my eye hurts or whatever, like
Yeah.
because the thing they use we'll learn about later, the patience and stuff through the eye. Like man, my eye really bothering me.
The
And
dark machine.
well, like in the very beginning of the game, they talk about the eye bothering you, and for the most part, you would be like, "Oh, whatever." Like
Yeah, like the first couple times he has a marker vision, he's like, "Oh," and he grabs his eye.
Yeah.
Like if I remember correctly.
I don't remember exactly, but I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those.
Well,
At first, you would think it's like this innocuous thing, like, "Oh, it's no big deal," like whatever. Like he just woke up, some dude just shook him awake, and
Well,
he's like,
kind
"Oh
of
man, my
grabbing
eyes
his
kind of
eye,
hurt."
his head. It's like it's kind of
Everything-
weird to say. He's just like
everything's
he's
all
grabbing
fuzzy.
around this area.
But it's just it becomes so much more important
Yeah.
later on, and there are a
Yeah.
bunch of spots in Dead Space 2 where
Oh,
they
yeah.
do that, where they allude to things happening in the future. So it sets you up a lot. Where if you're paying attention, you can see like, oh, maybe that might be important
Yeah.
sometime later.
And it starts you off in like a psych ward, so you're running through trying to survive. You eventually, you can I don't remember if you can die in the first run session.
You
Dead
can,
Space 1.
absolutely,
In Dead
100%.
Space 1, can you die? I don't think you can. I think the Necromorphs will kind of leave you alone. I think their AI is programmed to leave you alone.
No, they'll chase you, but they won't be as aggressive. They'll
Yeah.
still hit you.
Where in Dead Space 2 though, they will just straight up murder you.
Yeah, murder you first go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you even with me like really trying, I still had like a little tiny sliver of red health when I finished up that section.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of that is because they really want you to use the first health pack.
Yeah, I was about to
Your
say that
suit is
exact same
red.
thing. Yeah, like you
it's
go
red.
what?
The speech he gives you when the guy cuts you out of the straight track, he's
Oh,
like, "Your
yeah.
suit is red.
Yeah.
It's red." He's like just crazy.
Yeah, you were meant to get damaged.
Yeah,
in that
there's a med
'cause-
pack in the locker.
Yeah. So I mean, but okay. So in that, I wasn't going to get quite into this quite so soon. But just with that, the game does that a lot. That's one of the big differences I found between Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2. Is like Dead Space 1 had plenty of encounters. You had the quarantine zones where it would shut off all the doors, and yeah, you had to fight a bunch and stuff like that. But one of the biggest problems I had with Dead Space 2 was there were so many moments that just felt like this is just made to waste ammo or just made to burn up health packs. Because there was a lot of moments where, like, even if you're really good at it, you're going to run through a lot of ammo or you're going to burn up a bunch of health
I
packs.
think maybe because, like we mentioned, the first one, it was so easy that they wanted to give you more of a reason to use resources.
But even still,
but
by
then
the
you
end
have
of the game, I still had a
kinesis.
butt ton, or on normal mode. Again, on normal mode, it's pretty much all out action horror. Okay, with a caveat to that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But even near the end of Dead Space 2, I still had an abundance of items and money and stuff. But there were just a lot of more rooms that I felt like it was kind of like when we played Doom Eternal. And how, like in Doom 2016, I felt every encounter was very well planned with the mix of enemies and the escalating difficulty and stuff. Whereas in Doom Eternal, it felt like they just started throwing all the hardest dudes at you as much as they could just to make it hard. So
Make you spend all your ammo just cuz.
And I felt like
To
that in a
keep
lot
you
of
running
parts.
around.
Yeah, I felt like that in a lot of parts in Dead Space 2, but there were a lot of rooms that just weren't quite as well done as the first one, and it was just like, oh, like they just wanted me to
and
use a bunch of
this-
stuff.
In Dead Space 2, I felt like they wanted more for you to concentrate on like just fighting.
Yeah.
Because it's like I said in Dead Space 1, the pulse rifle you get way later.
Yeah.
And this one, it was like almost like the third gun you get.
It's real quick, real
It's
early
like
on.
here you go, pulse rifle. I'm like,
Well, the scale of this game is so much larger because it's not like you're a few days into a marker event where the Necromorphs have taken over the ship and they've killed most of everybody and you're just dealing with Necromorphs. It's like it is literally happening as you're like you wake up and all of a sudden that's the start of the infection event because there are still tons of people alive and being affected and like
So I don't think it has still been going on for a little while though, because
Well,
like
maybe a
even
few
Ignition,
hours.
in Ignition.
No, I think it's a couple
no,
of days.
it's actually
or
days.
days to
in
weeks.
Ignition, they talk about because they brought up Isaac. Well, they rescued Isaac from his shuttle, and they followed his flight path back to the planet, and they picked up the marker that was there, and that's why they start having the event
But even without ignition, they explain in Dead Space 2 that what's the main guy of the colony who's running the colony or whatever.
Tideman?
Yeah, there are audio logs and stuff you pick up of how he's like been trying to suppress and keep these outbreaks a secret throughout the sprawl.
I guess that's true because like you were used to create. That's getting further ahead, but you were used to create a marker.
Yeah.
So like I guess. I guess that's like
because as the marker,
you wake up to the containment being lost.
Like, so like I think it had. I don't remember. And someone out there is screaming at us about it was 4 days and 17 hours. Like, but things had been going on a little while. But you are on where all the levees have broken, and now it's
no
everything
longer isolated incidents.
Yeah.
It's now everything is getting destroyed.
And ignition, you're pretty much you're the guy. The whole point of ignition is pretty much you're shutting down like people's like information feeds and all that good stuff to find out. Oh, like this whole area is now infected. And in ignition, you're like, oh well, you're in lockdown now.
Yeah.
That sucks for you guys.
no.
Okay, well that makes a little bit more sense. I'm a huge being a huge fan doesn't mean I know everything. So.
Well, no, the only reason I know is because I played Ignition. I was just like, oh, okay, that explains it.
Yeah.
So I mean, one thing right off the bat, though, to move on a little bit, is that I did appreciate the slight tweaks that were made in this one. Like we talked in the last one, you could control your aim speed. You could punch in any direction.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where you talk about like Isaac being clunky and not the best with guns. Like I'm not opposed to that, but anybody can punch at the ground.
Yeah. That's
Isaac
true.
cannot swing at the ground in Dead Space 1.
Yeah.
No,
No,
he
he
can
cannot.
in Dead Space 2.
Yeah.
So it's
But
just
he
like
can-
those little
but the
logical
stomp.
advancements, you know.
The stomp.
He could stomp, yes, but it was still a lot easier to hit what you were trying to hit in 2 versus 1. Because there's a lot of times where I'm like, I want to stomp that, but I'm stomping over there. I want to stomp that way, but I'm stomping that way. And it's like I could just punch directly at whatever I was trying to hit.
Canonically, for the sake of the game, like Isaac is pissed, so like he's stomping so much faster, he's running faster, he's punching everywhere. Like the first time you you have your kinesis module and your stasis module, I think like from the beginning, pretty much like you.
It's very early
Yeah.
because
And-
one of the first things you do, because you don't even have the
Plasma
plasma
cutter.
cutter.
Yeah.
So that brings in my next is kinesis is way cooler in this game.
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
you can just rip spikes off dudes and stick them straight to walls and
Which
Yeah.
I thought was in 1, which it is not.
I tried several times. I was like, why is this thing all limp? Laying around? Anyway.
Well, and it works better just in general because like in 1 you can pick up boxes and throw it at necromorphs. It does virtually nothing for the most part.
Yeah.
Some of them every once in a while are helpful. I mean, like you have the exploding things obviously.
Yeah.
But even like if you pick up like a fire extinguisher and throw it, it pretty much just bounces off of most of them.
Yeah.
But in this one you have a lot more oomph to it, where you
Right.
can like knock over necromorphs easier and like
Yeah,
you
pick
can,
up a box, hit them with it, they stun.
You can
or
rip
shoot
off
off a boom
parts.
baby's head and throw the body.
and throw the boom baby.
Yeah.
Yep, stuff like
Boom
that. So, yeah,
babies.
Kinesis is definitely way cooler.
It's a natural progression. It's a nice step in the right direction for how the game should play, because whether it's canonically or just like advances in gameplay technology, like it fits this game so well, and like
well, and it adds
everything
to
has so much more punch to it.
what I was saying, like, well, a little more well-rounded stuff. So not just the controls, but also improved load times. Things are generally smoother in the game, but there's like breakable stuff. So when you're shooting spikes and things, you can shoot them through windows. Whereas in the previous game, windows were impenetrable.
Yeah,
You know?
there's a lot more to the physics.
I will admit that this game, I felt, for me, I'm not sure if it's actually true or not, but this game like pushed the barrier of like horror games, because I think this is the first game where you guys actually have to kill kids.
Oh, yeah,
I wouldn't say it's the first game.
Well, that I
that
can
you
think
play-
of,
yeah.
because it's always a full grown adult.
I was gonna say this game, like you would think that it's a sequel, it's probably not gonna be as scary because you're used to the world and like, oh, you're not as isolated because now you're on this big space station where there's lots of people and a lot of crazy stuff going on. The actions piece, the set pieces are bigger. There's more explosions. Things are going crazier. It's faster. This game to me is way scarier than the first.
So
game.
I was going to say that same thing too. So we talked in the last one about how everybody says that the first game is much more survival horror than Dead Space 2 is, and stuff. And like that's just not true. I mean, it is
No.
an action horror game. It does have a lot of survival elements on harder difficulties.
Yeah.
Now the same thing applies almost the same in Dead Space 2 is that on normal difficulty, it's not very hard. You typically have an abundance of healing items, things like that. But I was going to say, to me, there are a lot more spooky and scary elements
Yeah.
to 2 than there
Not
even
just
are to
jump
1.
scares, but like actual terrifying psychological.
Well,
or
like
otherwise
I have written down like the
elements.
balloon. Like in one of the first areas game, you're walking through, there's a bunch of, and a balloon just pops out of nowhere, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What was that? You know, so it's little moments like that. And in Dead Space 1, people are like, oh, the game is so dark. There's like 2 sections where it gets dark, and the lights immediately come back on. It gets dark for a second for your butthole to pucker, right? And then like 10 seconds later, the lights come back on, and not even necromorphs spawn. Like it'd be different if something spawned behind you.
Yeah.
But in Dead Space 2, there are a lot darker areas that you've
Yes.
got to walk through
You have
more
to use
slowly
your
with your
flashlight. And
flashlight.
you're fighting in the dark.
You're fighting in the dark. There are a lot more areas where it's like, hey, look at this thing, and then you turn around, oh, there's a dude behind you.
Yeah.
You know.
And in this game, it's a lot more. It's insta-kill instances because it's like, oh look, there's a window. Suddenly it breaks open and you're about to get sucked out
Yeah.
if you don't shoot the.
Yeah.
The little switch, which
Yeah.
I have a little annoyance with those. Like I get why they're there, but they're a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But think
Instant
about
kill
it.
Things kind of suck.
You know what? But think about it. They didn't even put that in the first one. I mean, you're in a ship that's literally falling apart at the seams. Not once that you were
Did
ever
something break?
Yeah.
And that might be a little bit. They had a little more money, so they can add a few more things into the game. So, but at the same time, I'm sure that there are some science nerds out there that are going, explosive decompression doesn't work that way. Like,
And sake for games, it will today.
but I mean, yeah. Okay, so that also brings me to about, because people say that Dead Space 2 is the perfect of the 3 ones, and it's like there are some things in there that, I mean. Okay, it's not that they're bad that it's there, but they do that explosive decompression thing a bunch, and
yeah,
it's one of
there's
those
like
where
4 or
it's,
5 times.
Yeah,
It's
they
like-
overkill it.
you could have maybe done
By
it
the
a
end.
couple less times, or make it at least a little bit easier to avoid it in some spots, because there's a couple of them where they straight up like trick you, where it's like, hey, there's a kinesis thing, a monster pops up there, you see that connection, let me do that, and then there's the window behind it, and if you do it, you break out the window. And I know that's the point, is to mess with you.
Like,
But
oh, crap.
yeah, but a couple times I was like, well, this is okay.
I've
Like,
actually cleared out a room using that because
Oh, yeah.
there's an achievement for like killing
Yeah.
20 different necromorphs or something
dude.
with it.
Literally, it's like I go next to the window, like, hey, look at me. They all come running over,
Yeah.
slow, shoot one on the leg, run around, hit the window, and then boom.
To me, it really only becomes more of a problem once you start playing on like hardcore.
Yeah.
Because when you only have like 3 saves and you could only restart from
If
each
you miss
save.
that.
Yeah, if
Shooting
any
that
of the
thing.
instant, that's where instant death things are cool, but that's why I don't like them, because I did beat it on hardcore, and it's like it adds such a much higher level of stress, because you're like, if I mess up right now, I've lost 6 hours of progress, or however long.
I was trying to
Yeah.
think. There's one near the end too that it seems just outright unfair to play hardcore mode with this instant death. I'm trying to remember what it was now.
Is that
man.
the one?
But
Is that the one right before you do the eye thing?
I don't. I'm trying to remember.
There's
Hopefully
a
it'll come to me.
few at the end that are
Yeah,
just
But there's a
At the-
few parts.
At the end, they're really just trying to kill you.
Well, like
Yeah.
there's a
That's-
lot of parts that people complain about, like the stalkers. Okay, so like the stalkers are fine. I think that they're part, and that's another thing that adds to like the first stalker encounter is so much more horror, because
Which ones are the stalkers? Sorry.
the ones that hide and run at you from around the corner.
Oh yeah.
So
like
the
in the unitology.
Yeah, the first one,
church.
the Utology one, that one I felt was kind of bullcrap, because like just the
It's such
way
a
that
cramped
that's
area.
Yeah, so like I backed into the elevator so they would follow me, and they won't follow you if you're standing on the elevator.
Yeah.
So you have to step off, get them to start running at you. So it's like it was just more kind of annoying and cramped. But the second one
Yeah.
in the warehouse, where it was like you go down there and there's nothing happening, it's quiet.
You get like
and you hear
halfway
like
through.
you hear like that wrench, like ding 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 ding. You're like, something's in here. What's going on? That I think is a great use of the stalkers and the horror and the holy crap, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So and people talk about like that part in hardcore mode, because the stalker parts do suck for hardcore
Yeah.
mode.
Yeah.
But the instant kills in some things were way worse. Like even one dude right in the very beginning, what is it? The first kinesis enemy that you have to fight when it's trying to tell you to use kinesis. If you just stand still and try to kinesis that guy, like you're gonna get murdered every time. You have
100%.
to move off a little bit and grab something and kind of move around him and put some distance and then kinesis to make it. It's like, dude, your hardcore mode can start over like right in the very beginning from this little annoying So I get that they're trying to make it difficult, but there are some parts where I was just like, man, this just seems unfair.
Yeah. Another thing is, but the hardcore wasn't really that bad when you get it. Cause most of the weapons you get kind of makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Speaking of weapons, I mean, in the first one, they were mainly tools. In this one, they were actual weapons.
Yeah, there were some actual weapons.
Yeah.
Like, the most you had in the first one was the pulse rifle. In this one, you had the mine gun.
Yeah, the detonator mines.
You had the sniper rifle thing.
The javelin.
Yeah.
Yeah, the javelin gun.
Which
stuff like that.
is, that one is way broken if you use it right.
Yeah.
That is so broken.
I'm trying to remember if I did a plasma cutter only hardcore run or not, but I know I did plasma cutter only again.
Yeah.
But
So there was no achievement in this one, so I started to do a plasma cutter, but it's less feasible in this game than other ones
It
because
is.
of a lot of the enemies that they throw at you and a lot of the combinations and how tough a lot of the enemies. Because I still had the plasma cutter fully maxed out with the fire damage and everything, and it was still a lot less feasible because, like
I
a
did
good
notice it
example,
was more annoying. Yeah.
well, just like the leapers, like we talked about in the first game, how they're kind of annoying. The leapers are the most pain in the ass thing in Dead Space. Dude, they're like twice as fast in Dead Space 1.
yeah.
They're so, oh my goodness, like
And the
One word.
exploders.
Just one word. Packling.
packling.
Fuck those little fuckers. I'm sorry, but I'm
Yeah.
like, they're like, you get your first group and it's like, oh look, little kids.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, you mowing down like packs of kids. Like,
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
one or two. It's like,
Okay, so to wrap back around to that with the horror and stuff, like there are way more spooky moments, way more dark hallways, way more little like say the balloon pop, the stalkers, and then the kids. Like between that and the babies.
Yeah.
Because-
and Isaac
Boom
losing
babies.
his mind.
Well, and Isaac losing it. Well, yeah, and some of the insanity sections where he's
Yeah.
like seeing
When the booty
images
call
and
comes
stuff.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, when Nicole comes back, and so and it's like, and then the when you get into the nursery, right? And there's the
that
girl,
lady.
the
The
woman there
worst
is
part.
losing her mind. Come here, little baby, and it's a little baby bomb that jumps in her arms and it just sprays the whole window with blood.
And
like it is way grosser.
Yeah.
And
if
what,
you stand there as Isaac too, he's like, oh.
yeah. Now
awesome.
I totally understand why your mom hates Dead Space too, because like mutilating babies and toddlers and stuff in this game, like it's kind of hardcore.
Yeah.
yeah, because you literally, but if you shoot it for Boom Baby's head and just like, you could carry around the dead body, but like,
Yeah, pick it up and throw it around
Yeah.
and stuff.
throw that
Oh,
stuff. That's a crowd killer right
Yeah.
there.
It's just that they just I feel like they balanced a lot of like they increased the action, but it's still even scarier. Like you're faster, but it doesn't mean much because some of the enemies do more damage. The explodey guys,
Yeah,
those guys,
yeah.
like they even on normal will almost instant kill you if they slam their thing.
Oh
down
yeah,
on
no,
you.
they're rough.
It's just like and like with the stalkers and the actual boss encounters were actually like pretty
we're
good in this game.
Yeah, we're a little better.
Yeah, it's oh,
like the
man.
tripod
Yeah.
and stuff.
You know-
so intense. Like there's so many intense moments.
Yeah.
I know we touched on this last time about his outfits. But the thing we didn't talk about is how painful does it look when he puts one on?
Well, I mean, when
Shot
you have to have it unscrewed and screwed into your body, because
Like,
that's what
literally-
it sounds like.
literally, he
it doesn't
walks
sound
into
like
it,
someone
it's just
putting a
like-
suit on. It sounds like a mechanic working on a truck.
Yeah.
Like,
Like a
It's like
like a
it-
3D printing machine. Just,
Yeah, it literally closes up and you just see that white line go from top to bottom, and it's just like,
you know what? It would have been even better if you hear Isaac screaming inside there when it's putting it on.
no.
Oh! Well, that was one
Or
thing
just
too
one-
that was funny. So in this game, when I played Dead Space 1, I tried going in with like the plasma cutter. I'm going to try to be conservative. I'm going to try to play it a little more survival horror. And then it very quickly dawned on me it's action. I had so many items and stuff like that. Whereas in this one, I tried to do the same thing at the beginning, but then this game sets you up to be even more action fueled. Like I say, there's way more instances that are made just for you to burn through ammo or burn through med packs. So I did not feel bad when I equipped the police outfit that has like 25% armor right in the beginning of the game and 25 items.
Yeah.
Now, to preface that, I beat this game when it came out. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's my first time through. So if it's your first time through, I would recommend going with
All
the
the
items that are
standard
like
stuff.
given to you with standards just to experience it. But I also didn't really feel bad that I was like, you know what, this game is meant to be like actiony all the way, and
listen, I think everybody buys that police outfit the second they can. It's like, listen,
Well, that's a DLC one that it gives you for free.
The security out?
No, not the security. It's
Oh.
specifically a police version.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. The security one comes much later.
I don't remember. I had a lot of the DLCs that I used in this one, but I don't remember seeing.
Well, because you have the pre-order bonus one, which is the one that has the red and the stuff written all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
I
that
have-
one's even a stronger armor.
Yeah.
But then they had the police one. I don't even know why I had this DLC. Maybe they made it free or something. Or you know what? I think it came with the multiplayer update. But it's like it says like police on it and stuff. But yeah, it has way more armor and all the item slots and stuff. So it saved me, $40,000 on armor or whatever.
Another big thing. Forgot to mention. So like in the first game, you have that one unitologist scientist guy who's out to get you, but you're not outright being tracked by humans. Where in another big difference in this game is not only is there a necromorph outbreak, but you're being sought after by people. Like you are being tracked down and like manipulated and deceived.
And they shoot at you.
Yeah, and they shoot at you. You don't get to shoot at them back yet.
Which doesn't
Anyway.
make any sense. I'm like, he's like, most times when you run into like other people, you got to make a run for it. It's just like mad dash to whatever area. But
He's
I'm like,
he's not out to kill people. I think that's like the man.
Well, in
there's
this-
so many
in
things
that
I'm
game,
trying,
he
trying to
just-
hold on to it for Dead Space 3 because of the anger and the rage is this building. But
well, and then you have the new love interest, Ellie.
yeah.
She doesn't really become one until later.
yeah, there's to me there's not really any kind of indication of that in the game itself.
it kind of becomes prevalent that he's starting to feel something for her after, like,
I think it's more of just, hey, there's another person, so like have this connection. Like we are two people.
Yeah.
Like we need to, especially because the first one was almost totally. He had his team, they got killed, so he lost all that. So like
Yeah.
in this one, he's just trying to hold on to
Even
whatever.
something.
even with
yeah,
Strauss, because Ellie and Strauss eventually team up, and he's like, I feel like he has the same level of like care for her as he does have for Strauss, because Strauss is seemingly the only other person that was on his level, and he needs him in order to do whatever that they need to do. They don't even know what it is.
yeah, to stop the machine or
Yeah.
whatever he keeps blabbering on about.
And he's just like, and that's another big thing, is like another thing that adds to the horror and the creepiness. It's like you have some people who are muttering to themselves and like seeing images and things in the first game, but you have an actual character, a personification of the crazy that is happening, and he's just
Yeah.
always like, you hear him and like you meet up with him and you're following him around, and like you progressively see him get more and more and more insane. You're like, whoa, this dude is like this.
Yeah.
He's
bad news
losing
is-
it.
the effects
Well,
of the markers
Yeah.
more real time. Where you
Even-
start to have more.
yeah, even
vision,
Isaac
and
started
your
having
visions start
breakdowns.
becoming more like
Vivid.
at first it's just like little screens changing and stuff, and then it becomes like brings you into a whole nother world later.
Yeah,
and
because like when you're going through the Unitology Church, you go through the screen, the chapter transition tubes, so the maintenance tubes, and like you get out, and all of a sudden you're trying to stab yourself in the eye with a needle, but it looks
Yeah.
like Nicole's trying to do it.
Yeah.
First of all, how did he all of a sudden get a needle in his hand? I'm not going to debate that, but it's just like, whoa, like you gotta save yourself from killing yourself.
Every
So-
time Nicole comes up, it's never good news
Yeah.
for anybody.
No.
It's like, again, she pops up on the transition. He's trying to stab himself in the eye. He really just got out of a bad situation. He's already feeling pretty beat up. She pops up. Yeah, looks like you're having a bad day. You deserve it. What the hell?
Yeah, it's just like it's him and the marker torturing himself, and like anytime, like that's another cool thing too, is like random things happen. There's visions, and like the screens will all of a sudden turn like red and brown and like flash, and you're like, what the hell? And then it'll just like stop, and then it's all dark,
Yeah.
and you're like, whoa, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, it does a great job, the game just in general, in improving upon what the last one did. Because, like, okay, they always talk about sequels and getting too big and building on the last one and stuff. And you have to. You can't just do the exact same thing. If you would have put out just another exact same Dead Space game,
Just in a
people
different
then,
location.
yeah,
Yeah.
people would have just been like, oh, it's too
Yeah.
much like the original.
Yeah.
So you have to try to strike that balance of adding enough and changing enough, but
Like
keeping
adding more turrets.
Yeah, like adding more dirt, but keeping the same core, kind of stuff. Because there are a lot of things that like I like having options. So sometimes you can see infectors in the other room, and you could shoot out the glass. Whereas in Dead Space 1, you just have to watch them making necromorphs. You don't have a choice. Whereas in this one, you can shoot out the glass and prevent them from making things worse. So that's just like a small little tweak that builds on that a little bit. Or like some of the enemies will feign death in this one.
Yeah.
You'll think they're dead. You take them out, they're not moving. Then you get close and they pop back up.
Yeah.
So it's those little small tweaks to up the ante a little bit, keep you on your toes, but still be within the same vein. You know what I mean?
Well, especially because like talking about with the visions, I just thought about this is you get a hint at what's going to be there from the first game we didn't mention, but near the end when you're with Nicole, quote unquote, and you draw the shuttle back from leaving the Ishimura, and like you don't really think about it, but all the screens there are like flashing red and have the marker symbol. You're like, okay, cool, maybe it's just something the unitologist did, but then like. And that starts happening way more in the second game, and you're like, "Oh shit, you're just crazy."
Actually, yeah. I remember that. I think there's a room you walk through, and then, like all the screens are normal. Then as you're walking by, they're all turning red as you're walking down that hall. So
Yeah, that's my favorite part about this game is that like it loves to mess with you even more so than the first one. Like the entire time, you don't really like it makes you feel like you don't really know what's going on. You have this idea of this objective, you have these things you're trying to accomplish, but you don't know who you are anymore. You're Isaac, he has a voice, but is it really Isaac? What's happening? Yeah.
Well, and I want to touch on that real quick. The voice, because that seems to be a big divider within the community. Because like you prefer no voice.
Well,
where
I preferred it in the first one, but the voice actually added a spark of flavor, so I'm okay with it.
So I think the biggest thing, the meeting in the middle part of it, they should have done was like it wasn't wrong that they gave him a voice, because especially in Dead Space 2, there's a lot more of the interaction back and forth. And like you say, he's trying to tell people like, listen, I've been through this shit. I know how to handle these things. If you stick with me, we'll be all right. So having him being able to express it is great. But I do wish they scaled him back a little bit.
Made him more like Master Chief.
Yeah, well, there are just some moments where it's like you're just talking too much,
Yeah.
and because he throws out a lot of cuss words, and I don't have a problem with cussing, but there are some moments. There's some moments where it totally makes sense, like especially right in the very beginning when he's in a straitjacket and he sees things of murder, and there's this part where he's just like, "Oh shit!" Like, okay, that makes sense. And then later on, it gets to be where like there's a lot of it going on, and it's just like, okay, now it's lost its oomph. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like he's lost his presence. Like you talk too much. Like I'm fine with you. And they
Halo.
picked a good voice actor.
Yeah, they did actually.
Yeah, Halo 4. He sounds like you would look at Isaac and you listen to the voice. Like he matches very well for the character, the way that he speaks. It was just like you talk too much. Like why are you talking so much?
I know this holds no weight to anything, but it's hard to pin down Isaac's age because he has like gray hair.
Well, I mean, if you've been
especially
through
now.
that, you'd
Yeah.
have gray hair too.
I know.
Especially in that world when you can be held in stasis for 3 years
So-
after experiencing a traumatic event.
So I'm
Yeah.
like looking at it. I'm like, I have no idea how old you are, bro.
Yeah.
Are you 30?
Yeah.
35? You might be 50.
45. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very stressful.
But can you imagine just like you just survived a traumatic event, you got rescued, and then all of a sudden you lose
Wake
3
up.
years of your life,
No,
and it's
3
like
years
nothing
later.
happened. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I thought I made it out.
Yeah.
But that's part of the beauty of it too, is like you think you make it out at the end of the game.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like that's ripped away from you on purpose and it's done well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so much I could talk about this game that I don't even know what to talk about.
Well, I mean,
we're gonna
it's-
we're gonna touch on the one thing that Alex talked about that he wished that they could change was the 0G, which they absolutely
The
did.
zero G
yes.
was much better. Okay, so again, it's not like it was bad and it functioned well, but the way that it's handled in Dead Space 2 is way better than in Dead Space 3. I mean, in Dead Space 1, I would definitely say
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
For
sure.
100%.
Well, especially with the enhanced kinesis abilities and being able to find little secret things floating out in space and stuff like that. Because that very first spot where you go into 0G, there's a power node sitting right outside. It's real hard to see because it's against the stars. But I was just like randomly kinesising points, and I just grabbed power node. Like heck yeah,
Yeah.
Which
I
is
got
funny
power
because you do this, nothing.
yeah, power node. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, but yeah, I agree. I like the way that was done in this one better.
My favorite scene in the whole entire Dead Space 2 is after the turret scene, where it's like you shoot everything. They're like, "Oh no, we're getting pinned down here, Isaac. We need you now!" And he hits the eject button, and like he gets picked up and then shot down back at the space station at full force. He
Oh,
goes
yeah.
flying, and I'm like, dude,
That was really cool.
it's literally because he literally crashes through the roof and like does like a superhero landing.
You gotta
Yeah.
fly through broken parts of spaceships and stuff
Yeah.
and aim it correctly and all that. Yeah,
Yeah,
those
that
were
was really
those
cool.
were really cool.
Can you save the birds in that before that scene where you're realigning the solar arrays?
The birds?
Yeah, well, so that what happened just before you go up there and you launch back to the station, you're going up there to restore the power because Tideman is like, no, we're not going to let you leave. We're going to just evacuation protocol. Everybody's out, and it shuts down power. And so now you're on life support, and it's going to run out. You go up there to realign the solar arrays to get power, and if you walk into the room that has the body you got to pick up for
Yeah,
the
which is
bioscan,
another great thing about the kinesis. That was where you pick up the dude to be
Yeah.
able to get through the door. Like
that whole sequence where you're having
another
to, like
small tweak that added just so much.
yeah, like the bioscans using the bodies to get rid of the mines, taking out the supercomputer and all the enemies and everything. But like there, you walk into that room, there's birds. in a
Yeah,
cage.
yeah. Okay, his pet birds.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I just
yeah.
like, could you? I can't. Can you release?
I
I
don't
just,
know.
I thought
I didn't
about
even
that.
think
Where
about
are
it.
you gonna let him go?
I don't know, but I feel so bad.
Space.
Yeah, I just like
That's like me asking about how does Isaac open doors?
I didn't think about it till this. I didn't think about it till this playthrough, but like I heard because you can hear them, like you can hear them as you leave the
Yeah,
room,
they're
and then
tweeting
you
around
come
and
back
stuff,
around
yeah.
and you can hear them tweeting underneath. I'm like,
I feel bad.
what
for
have I
birds.
done to these birds?
I actually enjoy
As I murder children.
by the boatloads.
They're necromorphs now. I don't care.
The gym scene where you're it has the little play and you're in the
Oh,
gym.
yeah.
And it is like
Right after
like
the nursery.
70 children
Yeah.
mowing through.
Dude, I literally my pulse rifle did not stop firing in that room. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like mowing down kids by the millions.
Yeah. God, that whole part, it still got me. Even after playing it so many times, just walking in there and you're like, I know what this place is about and I don't like it.
Because you literally got to walk through the school. It's like you go through the classrooms, go through the nursery, and I'm like, I got to kill these kids, yo.
Yeah, as soon as you enter in, you see that first baby blow up, you're like, I mean, like, okay, you killed babies.
Oh, no.
To be fair, in the first game, they're fetus, they're
Experimental
test tube grown
things.
fetuses.
Yeah.
Which is
They don't
still
look like babies at
yeah,
that point.
I mean, their faces do. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still horrific kind of a thing. But then when you think about on the sprawl, like this is a place with living families.
Well, and before that, if you remember, because you're walking by the apartments and like people are banging on the doors and stuff, there's one in particular instance where you hear a baby crying.
Yeah, and then
The crying stops.
Yeah,
And you're like,
I remember that. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like literally
It's,
like
Dead Space 2 was rough.
yeah, I remember you walking through the living
so
quarters,
good.
you'll hear people like, "No, we're not in here. You can't come
Yeah.
in here."
Yeah.
I'm armed. Don't come in here.
Oh, that guy! I have it written down. I wish he shot at you through the door.
Yeah.
That would have been so. There's just a couple little things. So like with those doors, those peepholes. I wish one of them was that guy.
You could
like
see them
if you
like, "Bah."
get close and he shoots at you through the door. Two, like if you see, because there's a couple of necromorphs that pop through the doors, but like it has the peephole screen.
Yeah.
I assume for you to interact with whoever's on the other side of the door.
Yeah, video
it would have been great if like you look at that and it was something or whatever, and then have something pop through afterward because you got close enough to look at it.
Or you saw one like murder somebody inside the room through
Yeah.
the
And the
video screen.
original Dead Space 2, when Ignition was still relevant, if you played Ignition and then played Dead Space 2, the things you did in Ignition would carry over to Dead Space 2.
Okay, so what?
So
does that
there
mean?
are like some few locked doors, and like you'd be like, I should be able to get in here. I'll probably have to come back, but you never actually get access to that door.
Mm-hmm.
If you play Ignition, you would actually have that door unlocked.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I know, like, the guy with the gun, like, oh, I have a gun in here. you actually get an option to sabotage his door. And if you do sabotage his door, it'll be open and he'll be dead.
Huh.
And his gun will be on the floor. You can actually pick it up.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, interesting. Because I remember I played. That's about as far as I got in Ignition. Because there was the hostage situation.
Yeah.
That was about as far as I got before I quit playing it.
It's a whole.
And
lot
I played
of,
it after Dead Space 2.
That's a cool little tie-in that they do.
Yeah, a lot of the things that they do, like you can find like little caches here and there if you do play Ignition.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but I'm like, again,
It's not worth playing Ignition.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you have to force yourself through that game.
Well, at least there's payoff. I was gonna say, like, that's I think honestly one of the best parts about Dead Space 2 is there's so much payoff to little instances, whether it's the baby crying, the dude with the gun, when you walk into the hallway and like the one guy is trying to take the woman away, he's like, my mom's still in there. And then you walk, like, you can completely ignore that room, but you walk in there and then all of a sudden one of the spitter vomiter guys comes crawling out of the bathroom. He's like, oh, there's grandma.
Yeah,
Like,
because the dude's like, that's not your mom anymore
Yeah.
or whatever, and you walk in, you're like, yeah, it certainly is.
and
not.
you just shoot grandma on the ground. Just like right after they left, you're like, oh my God.
I just think it would have been cool if the dude behind the door, if he's like, stay away, and like if you walk up and punch the door, like as it knocks, start shooting at you through the door.
Yeah.
Because I would walk up to a lot of those little screens trying to see if there was like a little secret or something, and it was like, man, I really wish when I went to look at it one time, something scared the shit out of me and popped out of this door.
Most of the time there's payoff. Maybe not always, but
No, it's not that there's not. There's just a
Yeah.
couple. If I was a developer when making the game, like that would have been one of my ideas is to like
Yeah.
throw that in there.
I will give the studio one major props to them was they built this world so that you can actually like relate to it. Like when you're in when you're walking around, you see like advertisements, like businesses and everything else, and you can like when you're looking at the families,
It feels
and, like,
real.
Yeah, it feels like, hey, look, people.
Yeah.
yeah.
That reminds me of in Dead Space 1, there's a couple of them on the tram, and there's the one, it's supposed to be for like something like a perfume or something. It has like this girl laying it says flesh. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
I was like, what a great flesh. It's like, you're fighting all these mangled masses of flesh. And
Yeah.
but yeah, there's a lot of great little
Yeah.
touches like that. If you're paying attention, there's a lot of cool little things like that in there.
Oh yeah.
Like when he lands, like when after the scene where he gets ejected back down to the station, you land in the food court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, when I landed, I was like, oh, what? Can I get a burrito?
Yeah.
Wow.
It feels lived in, even though it's
Yeah.
all dead.
So that brings me up towards, I think we're kind of climbing towards the climax of things.
I mean, I could talk about it all.
I mean, there's
but-
like,
we could go by this all.
well, Dead Space 2,
to
it's a
belabor
lot
it.
of the same as in Dead Space 1 with a lot of improvements and stuff and good tweaks and things like that. But to me, the end of it, it starts to unravel a little bit. Because I feel like they're at a certain point, because it gets to like what we were saying earlier, it's throwing the hardest version of every enemy at you in droves. And I know it's supposed to be like you're trying to hurry because the world is dying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're going insane. Well, you've gotten acceptance from the marker.
Yeah. But there's just a couple of parts at the end where, again, it seems like it ups that level of just trying to get you to blow all the ammo you've had all the game.
Yeah.
Because I did have to buy a little bit of ammo near the end. And
Well-
it wasn't so I can kill everything, but it was like just to be able to slow down dudes enough to get it. And I know that's kind of part of the point. Like, I get what they were going for. But there are a couple of moments where, like I say, it seems like that ramps up that level of BS just a little bit where it's like, I was getting annoyed a little at the end.
At the end, it does. For me, when I played, I remember thinking, they're just throwing enemies at you, but it's no rhyme or reason. Like, there's no like, oh yeah, we're trying to prevent you from doing this. It's just like, okay, you've been alive too long. Here are harder enemies.
Yeah.
Well, like having the multiple regenerators was kind of fine on its own because then you're having to juggle 3 separate ones, like cutting off legs and stasis and running away. But then you get
only the one.
no, it's at least multiple.
It's a hallway there, just like I remember it's kind of like you're trying to get to a
It was
the
like,
tower.
It
It
might have
wasn't
been
until Dead
2.
Space 3 where there's 2 generators.
No, there's like 5 in Dead Space 3 if you
Oh.
go in the right spot.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's throwing. Now it might be
That's when
misremembering.
And there was just the one big black one because you see him.
Well, he's
like,
a big gray one this
Well,
time instead of a fleshy because he's
black-
got like the 5 eyeball.
Yeah,
looking-
because you go into government sector and everything's locked down. You release the lockdown, and then like, all of a sudden there's waves of necromorph just murder all
Yeah,
these dudes
yeah,
sitting
yeah.
there, and then you see the one guy just.
I
I
could have
will
swore it
bring
was
up.
more than one.
I will bring up the fact
it
that
feels like there's more than
regenerators
one.
walk like children on a mission. Like they're like,
Yeah.
Either
It
way,
feels like
I
there's
may
more
be
than one
misremembering.
because he's everywhere.
But okay, so that's kind of my point.
Or
Is it regenerates very very quickly, even faster than in Dead Space 1. And like, let's say if it was just like 2 of those, like that would have been fine on its own, because you have to, like I said, because doors don't open quickly, so you have to
Yeah.
cut the legs and then stasis. So it takes time for him to grow back, open doors, get through. But then when you get to a couple of those hallways, it'll be him, and then like 2 guys in the ceiling,
Oh,
2
yeah.
leapers, 2 other big guys, and you're trying to just
and
like
boom babies
and
that
boom
come out of
babies.
nowhere.
Especially when you're in that little serpentine thing.
Yeah, the little serpentine, and I'm trying to use like the line gun just to cut legs off and then run
Yeah.
and stuff. And it's like, I know that's part of the point, but to me, there's just a few of them that gets to be a little
I
much.
think-
And then especially when you're talking like hardcore mode.
I think they designed that section honestly around hardcore mode. I think that was really like here's the last thing you have to overcome before you beat hardcore mode.
Yeah.
Like I think they were like, okay, cool. All the rest of the game is for the other difficulty modes. This area is meant to kill you.
And see, to me, that's such bullshit. Like hardcore would be hard enough without this. Just like, God, that hallway
think
was
this
so
one had-
rough.
I don't think this one had a final boss.
Technically,
Well,
it does.
Nicole is quote
And
the
the
final
heart.
boss.
The
yeah,
heart
in,
of the
in
marker.
the
Yeah,
marker.
the heart of you're right.
Which that's one thing that was kind of nice about this one was the bosses weren't as big and dumb as in the first one.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of annoying moments. So we talk about like the tripod. So the part where
You're
you
blowing
get
up the canisters.
yeah, you're blowing up the canisters and
Yeah.
you get stuck in that thing. That's infinitely spawning tripods.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay, I know it's meant for you. I'm supposed to focus on blowing up the canisters. But that's another moment of where it's just to waste your resources, because
Yeah.
if you don't, so if you go in a little in between, like hit the thing, shoot the guy, hit the thing, it's not a big deal, but like it traps you into this idea like, oh, maybe if I just kill them all, they'll stop spawning and I can blow them up at my own leisure. It doesn't. And I understand the point of that, but it's almost to a point where it's like if you're playing a hardcore mode, that could be the death of your run.
Oh, yeah.
That elevator.
If you waste too much ammo and stuff on that tripod, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That elevator has ended my hardcore so many times.
The elevator, the drill, the drill machine.
Yeah, riding on the top of it.
Like there were like I remember when I first started getting into the hardcore run, like looking up the best places to save the game, and it's like there's like 3 particular instances that are right before instant death traps, and like one's right after one's either before or after the machine at the end, the dark machine that stabs your eye and extracts
Yeah.
the runes, and it's like. Yeah,
Like I get that they're trying to make it hard. I'm not against that, but there were some moments where it was just like, y'all are just, this is messed up, especially for a no death run. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
it just seems ridiculous.
I have to mention before we, because there's more I want to mention about the end. Before we wrap that part up, we didn't even touch on the fact that you go back to the Ishimura.
Oh yes. How cool was that?
Such
So
a
talking
cool
about
throwback.
backtracking in the first game and how it really didn't bother me too much because it was done well. Because in some games it's just too much. Like there
Yeah.
are some where, like even in Jedi Fallen Order, is one of those people like, oh, I love the Metroidvania. There are some times where it's like you have to go to like 4 other planets to get 4 other abilities to come back to the first planet
Yep.
to get everything.
Yeah.
And it's like you could go back. That's like too much. Let's come
Back and
come-
forth.
Yeah, back and forth. But this one was great in the way that like they were trying to repair the Ishimura, and at first like there's no enemies on it
Yeah,
because
you
they're
go through a good portion of it.
well they're like not there because they
Yeah.
didn't originate in Ishimura. They originated in a different part of the sprawl. So you kind of get this. It's real dark. The game slows
Nostalgia.
down, gets real creepy.
And Nicole is taunting you the entire time, like all the plastic and tape just to cover the scars, but you know what happened here. You're like, oh my
Yeah, it was great. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden
Yeah.
it starts in where that brute comes through the
yeah.
boxes. And it's like, because you're like, I know something's going to happen. I know, but you're not expecting Gorilla Man jumping through, Kool-Aid Manning through the wall. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just.
And then there's like 15 more enemies in that one hallway. Yeah, that's such a cool, like you go through so much crap. You realign power, you shut down computers, you go through churches, you like fight waves of enemies in 0G and with no oxygen, and like there's brutes and everything, and things are just going crazy. You ride a tram, then you get stuck on the tram, then the tram nearly crushes you. go through all that crap, and then you're like, oh man,
What do I got to do? I got to go back to this place.
You mean, are you serious right now?
Listen,
And like even like, sorry,
no, it's just when you see it for the first time, you just kind of go, okay, y'all got to be kidding me. This got to be like a reboot of a remake.
So
or
you
something.
completely relate to how Isaac, he's just like, that's the Ishimura. And like you hear the shaking in his voice, and Ellie's like, are you okay? He's like, that's where it all started. And you're like, and she's like, what? And then you go on there and like you like you hear his labored breathing and his talking is raspy. And like she's like, are you okay? He's like, if you knew what I went through on this ship, like you would not want to be where I am right now.
You wouldn't ask that question.
And see, that's another one of those moments where if less is more. So she would have been like, Isaac, are you okay? And he says that. He's like, you don't know it. If he would just be like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And then you just have to go on. Because that would have been like, I feel that shit.
I do. I do. Absolutely.
I don't want to go back there either.
Yeah.
I barely made it out the first time.
And that part doesn't overstay its welcome either. It's
a little concise. It's not like 4 levels.
Yeah.
And you revisit the medical bay.
Yeah,
On the Ishimura.
Yeah.
So you
And
go
she
back
goes,
to like,
this is where I died.
well,
it's like oh, everything's fine. I restarted the centrifuge. Like everything will be great as long as I don't have to go through medical. And it's like
one of the worst places to go through twice in the first one. And it locks
obstruction
down
on
that
the track,
same area.
stopping at medical. You're like, oh,
Well, and you think because that area is a quarantine in the first game, so I remember that having just played it, and so it goes through the first time. You're like, damn it! Like I'm gonna have to fight a bunch of dudes, and then it doesn't do it. It lets you through, and on the way back, it locks you down again. You're like, why am I? What the crap? And it's like then the waves of guys come. You're like, so that's a microcosm of how these big moments with all these dudes and stuff is done right in these tight little compact segments. Like that was so great. No, I totally agree.
Seemed like you were going to mention something. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just thinking when you go back to medical, you like when you walk in there, Nicole is just like taunting you, like, oh, you could have saved me, but you did, and you suck. And I'm like,
you never stopped to look for me at the whole time you're on the Ishimura.
Yeah, I'm like, she's like crippling anxiety for anybody.
It's like you made me do this. This is your fault. Like, oh no.
I'm like, listen, I wish they would.
I would have never done this if you didn't push me to do this.
They should add like a little RPG aspect, and you could be like, have Isaac be like, I didn't tell you to go on that ship. It wasn't me. That's you.
Dialogue options.
Oh man, yeah, that's like. I'm sitting here trying to think of what the most like. It's between that and the school are probably the most terrifying like parts of that entire game, because the psychological things, the things you go through, just the implications. Because like when you're going through the cryo storage of the Unitology Church, and like you go through the one door, like 6 doors, and then all of a sudden nightmare.
I meant that was another one I was gonna bring up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but like that's like scary. But you're like, okay, so eventually you start getting tired of just walking through tube after frozen tube of shit, and then then you go to the
So okay, that was
school.
another great example. I can't believe it. I thought I written it down. Maybe I just looked over it. But another great example of that pure horror moment in the game, and how much better. Because there's, like I say, you could take out a bunch of those ammo wasting parts, and you have the cryo, because you go underneath and you look around, and you're like, this place messed up. Some bag gonna have down here, and then you go through like 4 doors and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then there's the one that's busted open, and you're like, someone's in here with me.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you walk around, still nothing happens, and you get into the next room, and finally there it is.
Yeah.
And then it starts to be a little more trickling through. It's not a ton of them. It's not every single tube opens, but it's like that was such a great moment. It stood out so much the entire game of just like how. Like I wouldn't be able to poop with 20 laxatives because my butthole was so puckered that entire section.
Yeah.
Like
We didn't talk about it much on the first one, but on this one, I will bring up the Unitology in itself. It seems like a whole bunch of just like crazy
Super
people
messed up.
just wanted to be like, listen, I'm crazy, and I want everybody else to be crazy, and I want a group of crazy with me because we're all crazy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I get when I hear
like Twitter.
Yeah. I say we don't get political, but there's a little bit. When I first played the Church of Unitology, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. No, I get it now.
Like, because
I get
listen, because like when you're playing, like it really touch it more in 3, but in 2, like 1 they kind of make you aware of it. 2, you see it for what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then in 3, it's just kind of like,
especially if you
Train
take
got off the rails a little bit.
Especially if you take the time as you're going through the church to listen to all the audio
The
recordings and
videos.
stuff.
Well, and the audio logs are great through
Oh,
a lot of
absolutely.
Dead Space 2. Again, it just adds so much more
Yeah.
of everything in there.
yeah, when you work in a church, they have like this video playing, and it's like clouds and
Yeah.
blue skies and like unitology, saving the universe. We're all coming together. No, we're not.
Like you don't understand
All right.
what this is.
Like, I don't want to be a part of this cult.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's literally a giant cult.
Yeah, it does so much to take what the first game set up and just like ramp it up to its extreme in some of the best ways. Like getting back to the end, you're going through you bust a hole in government sector, and he's like, "Oh man, we just created a hole for all these necromorphs to get through."
Yeah.
And like everything's peachy in there, and then all of a sudden, like you get through, you release all of them, you see the regenerator come through with his child block, and everybody dies, and then
Yeah, within a matter of moments.
yeah, and then as you're walking through and getting further into the facility towards the marker chamber, and you just see just streaks of blood everywhere because they are freshly like you literally get to see the aftermath. It's like the scene of Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, or like Gray Fox from
Oh,
Metal Gear
yeah,
Solid,
yeah.
where it's just like
You show up
You
to the
slept for 2
carnage.
seconds.
Yeah.
You were asleep for 2 seconds and wake up, and all of a sudden it's like blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and that
there's-
part, like, I started to feel a little bit bad again too, because there was a lot of scientists and stuff that
Yeah.
were. It wasn't just soldiers, but it was like I let these necromorphs in.
yeah.
No. You put me in stasis for 3 years. Your life is forfeit.
I don't feel bad for you anymore.
I don't.
Yeah, but then you're going through, so you finally, and then the peak moment, it's like right before things get a little too crazy, in my opinion, is you go across the bridge and you look around, and there's this huge cylindrical chamber in front of you, and you look at the other bridges, and there are just hordes of necromorphs.
Yeah.
You're just like, how
Which were
am I
animated.
Just
Terrible.
Yeah, they are.
it was just
but like still,
it was like sports games in the early 2000s bad. It's like one static little sprite that just like.
that aside, you sit there and you go, how am I expected to fight this horde?
Yeah.
Like you're like, it's over, it's done. It's a good thing I set Ellie off in the ship because I'm going to my
I
death.
stabbed my eyeball for nothing.
Yeah, like I'm going to my death. So you go in there, you go to the machine, you have your shit extracted from your head, and the convergent event starts. It's like, whoa! And you're like, oh crap!
and the giant whirlwind in
Yeah.
the middle of a
Insert
building.
inception noise.
Yeah.
Wah.
And then you're running from the regenerator, and to me, this is where like the thing that disappoints me the most is that like in the previous game, you get to freeze and blow up the 2 regenerators. I don't know if it's 2
No,
or
it's
just the
one.
one. Like, but he comes back and you get to
In the-
incinerate it.
Yeah.
In the
with
first
with
game.
the shuttle at the end.
And then the second game, you just escape it. And then
Yeah.
once you get to the end of the Serpentine, you go up to the platform where Nicole is, and then it's just the regenerators all of a sudden like, cool, I'll leave you alone now.
Well, I assume it's something with the hive mind, and they're like, "Oh, he's made it to the thing. She's trying to pull him into the whatever."
I get that,
so
but like when it comes to payoff, when we talked about payoff, like that's the only thing that I feel like doesn't pay off is like even the little altercation you have with Tideman, and then like the fight with Nicole is like everything pays off. It's just that little one
does-
thing is just like you didn't get to kill the regenerator.
it makes you kind of wonder, like, why did all these necromorphs spend the whole game trying to kill Isaac if the whole time they all knew Isaac was the key to making the world end?
I can only
well,
assume-
they didn't need him alive.
Yeah,
because
say,
even
they
if
just
he
needed to
became,
bring him.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because if he became a necromorph, he would have walked his little necromorph self.
Yeah,
Or they
Well,
just download it into the necromorph matrix, and
I
they have
think-
the.
because I think that's why at the end there, like you said, why they leave you alone is because at that point, like you've accepted Nicole. The marker's like, all right, this guy is way too powerful. Like we're not gonna just be able to trick him into doing this. So we need to like bring him
Make
onto
him
our
come
side.
willingly, so they think that you're about to.
Yeah.
Because you can, like, because if you go into, so the final boss is the encounter with Nicole, and if you walk in, just walk right up to her, she just like hugs you and makes you like part of the whole
Yeah,
or whatever.
You die and
Yeah.
like you make us whole. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I mean, you could, if you had multiple endings or whatever, you could choose the convergence ending and
Yeah.
just become part of it. But see, I felt that this was a much more appropriate kind of final encounter in that. Well, not just that, but it's not like yes, the world is like you're in a tornado,
Which
there's
still doesn't make any sense. I'm just gonna.
well, it's all in your head, and so you're in like there's supposed to be like the maelstrom of insanity or whatever.
Well,
but the
yes.
way that it's done
Are you talking about
contextually,
before you enter Nicole in your mind, or
No,
like after?
when you're fighting Nicole
yeah,
and the
yeah,
babies
yeah.
on the inside of like your mind.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more appropriate kind of because it's not really like a boss. It's not a big boss battle where you're like, oh, like I gotta kill the big thing. It's like no, you just gotta weaken her enough to find the heart and like
Shoot the
you're
heart.
trying to get the core of the evil extracted so you can move on. Because if you fail that part, you shoot yourself in the face with the
Yeah.
the javelin gun, which is awesome.
I forgot that's a thing. Again, the death animations. That's another really good reason to play these games on harder difficulties, just to see how Isaac dies. Like
It's pretty great. You fail that, and he's sitting there with it just right
Yeah.
through his own head.
And it's like he falls over.
Yeah.
my favorite death animation, real quick, has to be with the splitter guy. What is it called?
No, divider.
The divider is if you let the head kill
Kill
you,
you,
and
yeah.
it rips off your head and then attaches itself. Like,
And then it'll put his head up.
yeah,
just
that's
Yeah.
like my favorite death animation.
I like
It
it.
is my favorite one.
I like the tripod when he shoves the spike in your throat and just keeps like 4 miles of spike just keep ramming down your throat before he rips you into a bunch of pieces.
Oh man, I don't think I've ever seen that one,
Yeah.
but
The tripod death's pretty fantastic.
yeah.
I'm sorry, but you were gonna say something about the end part there.
Yeah.
No, because I distinctly remember, like once you beat the heart and everything, and the station's getting ready to blow up, and the winds are going on, and then Ellie comes back and she's like, "Get in,"
Yeah.
whatever. He's get sucked up in he goes flying up to the thing. I'm like, I was sitting there, I was flying around in this maelstrom. I'm like, where's the wind coming from? That's the only thing I was thinking. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, but where's the wind coming from?
I want to say it's less of maybe not wind, but more of like a gravitational event, because the whole concept
But
behind
it's
the markers.
It looks like a dust tornado.
It does, but I think that's more because it's the necromorphs being
Tyler. It looks like a dust tornado.
okay. If it makes you feel any better, it's because it's the ripped apart dead bodies of the necromorphs being
Sucked
blendered
into,
into
the
like
convergence.
a biomass.
The biomass, that's the hive mind.
Yeah. Well,
Well-
okay, and that was gonna say that kind of brings me to what I think would probably be the closing. I wish, just as a little a preview of the next episode, Isaac would have died in that moment, because the whole Ellie came back at the last minute, and it's such a
Ex
Cop out.
machina.
cliche kind of, you know what I mean? And it's not that I would feel for Eyes, but I think that the ending, like if Dead Space 1 and 2 was those two and he died in that moment,
Oh,
after
it'd have been
everything
so
that just
much
happened,
better.
it'd have been so impactful. Because there are sometimes like characters should die. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that sucks. But that's even like in Captain America: Civil War when that movie was coming out. I was telling everybody like Cap needs to die. Like he dies in the comic for a purpose. Like he needs to, or someone in this movie needs to die. There needs to be some weight to this thing. And obviously, it didn't go that way, and it was still very good. But to me, this series would have been perfect, not or close to perfect.
Yeah.
If he would have died, then that would have been the end of it there, and it would
Yeah,
have
he
just so
goes down with goes down with the sprawl.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
would
I
be,
accomplished the mission, I saved the world, I saved the galaxy, or whatever.
Yeah, the events of Dead Space 3 would have never taken place, honestly.
Yeah, but then
Without
that
his
goes
involvement.
back to my whole his love interest with Ellie.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Dumb. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care that he found a new
He-
love.
Let's
like,
let's save that discussion for Dead Space 3 because man.
so just to touch on that a second, because again in the Halo Reach episode we talked about that, because there's the ODST. There's the forced love thing between Nathan Fillion's character and,
Yeah.
and the female
The
commander.
sergeant captain.
That and it's one of those moments where it's just you're just like.
But why?
It's so tiresome. Why are they
Yeah.
kissing? Why do they have to fall in love? Like I don't care.
Why did she have to lose an eye? Isaac didn't lose his eye. He stabbed his eye. He kept it. Just saying.
But
The
it's just
needle
in that
is
moment.
less strong than the screwdriver. Oh, dude. Okay, sorry, dude. I know we were like already kind of wrapping up, but I have to mention the death of Strauss because like
My boy.
he's gone crazy. Ellie's like, Ellie's like, "What are you doing with that screwdriver?" And then I didn't realize it at first, but it shows you like a second before he stabs her in the eye.
Yeah.
It didn't dawn on
Like
me.
almost touches her
Yeah.
eyeball.
Yeah, and then he shows up and she has no eye,
patch
and
later,
he's got he's like, "I've got the eye."
Yeah, he's got the screwdriver with the eye on.
do it.
Yeah, and then he like tackles you through the door, and then like you're like, "Crap, I don't want to kill you, but you know what? Blam in the head." Yeah, that was just like, I guess I got to figure it out from here. I'll do it, whatever. Yeah, that was just another cool moment. Anyway,
Everybody.
it's so many. It's built on so many cool moments, and there's like a good game that is like on in between. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say final thoughts then. Yeah, I mean it's another great game. You know,
That's a good one.
I would say that it is a very good blend of the action and more of the horror. And I actually feel like it has more survival horror in it than the first one, even though a lot of people will say, well, the first one's really a survival horror and the second one's really an action horror. Like, nah, not really. Like,
Yeah.
I would say they're both action horror. Like if I really had to put a title to it,
Yeah.
because of the fact that survival in any game is what your aim is,
Yeah.
but
That's true.
and real true survival horror games, it's resources are you just can't like lift up a rock and be like, oh look, health pack. It's
Yeah.
like you have to really be searching for it. And Dead Space, I mean, I can just go to a shop and just
yeah. Now, if you play on the harder difficulties, yes, it does ramp up the survival aspect quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, at their core, they're more action than, but they are still great at the horror. Like this game is still
really good at
fantastic at the horror.
Oh yeah.
Still massive trolls. They're still massive trolls.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, the very first shop you get there, and you're like, oh, a shop. This should be safe. And as soon as you get up to it, you get attacked. So yeah, they did it. It was a great job. So I mean, yeah, Death Space. I have basically the same thing I said about the first one. You know, unless you just absolutely cannot do horror at all. Like this is a fantastic third person shooter action horror game kind of thing.
It's a step above the first game. It fixes a lot of the issues the first game had, and it's just like, to me, it's the definitive Dead Space experience. It's one of, if not my favorite game. Honestly, I've played through it so many times.
Absolutely.
And I never get tired of it, because even though I know the ins and outs and I can find everything on every playthrough, it's just like, I don't know, maybe I want to use a different weapon, play it on a different difficulty. Maybe it's just like, maybe I just want to go through it again.
You don't want to use the jerry-rigged plasma cutter
course
that
I
you
did.
ripped off of a freaking medical table?
Yeah, as
What
the
is
dude's
wrong
getting
with you?
stabbed, he's like, "Oh shit!" Like, yeah,
He just like
I personally like the line gun a lot. The line gun is badass.
Javelin.
Javelin's pretty great too.
Dude, the alternate fire for that thing is just ridiculous. It's like stab if they're close enough, electrocute.
I'll say foam finger, bang, 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 pew,
Well,
pew, pew, pew,
see,
bang.
I would never
See.
beat hardcore to play the
Dude,
foam finger.
the foam
so.
finger is the greatest thing ever.
It's the best playthrough.
It's
Literally, it's the
literally-
most.
I'm sure
the
it's a ton of
most
fun. I
fun
would just never
playthrough.
put myself through hardcore mode to get it. I might play on your account since you have it.
So for
that's
anybody-
another little caveat there.
Say, for anybody that doesn't know, if you are brave enough to face hardcore mode and beat the game, you get a special weapon card called the
foam finger.
The foam finger. It has unlimited ammo, and it has max
One-shot
damage.
hit.
And it's just, you can just blah 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 blah.
Because it was the
everything.
first one, it was just the finger gun.
Yeah.
Right? And bang, bang, and pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
But he does that with the foam finger, too.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But for anybody out there who wants to try it, just know, like, hardcore mode is exactly that. Like, there are some games with hardcore mode
You
that
cry a
aren't
little
that big a
bit.
deal.
You gonna cry a little
but
bit.
Dead Space hardcore mode is fucking hardcore.
It's
Like, it's
one of the most stressful experiences.
It's going to be like
I've
one of the
ever
most
had.
challenging things you can do.
You
in
will be
gaming.
rolling for days.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because you need to know the ins and outs. You need to know.
There's no way to do it on a blind playthrough.
no, there's
you-
absolutely,
Absolutely not. You cannot.
Because you need to know the instant death traps. Like, it's a good thing it's locked behind a first playthrough, but you
Yeah.
have to know the instant death traps. You have to know how much ammo and health you need to play it on the hardest difficulty, because it's not as hard as the hardest difficulty when it comes to damage done and taken.
Yeah.
It's like a step below, but you need to know
Yeah, it's
exactly.
hard difficulty, not impossible.
Not
difficulty.
zealot. It's hard.
Or
yeah.
zealot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you need to know exactly how much, how exact, like it's
There are points where it's like if you make it to a certain point, you don't have this much ammo or this much money, you might as well just give up and just start
go
all
back
over.
from the previous save because you need to know like how many shots it takes to take out certain enemies and like
when you can skip certain enemies, when you can't.
Yeah,
And you can't be like just wasting ammo willy nilly. Like you just can't be like, oh, I missed over there, I missed over here.
Yeah.
Like after like a few missed shots, you're gonna be like, yeah, we're gonna pick this up.
You got to keep moving too. Like you can't
Absolutely.
you can't stand still, especially in some of those like those lockdown encounter instances because you'll die.
Yeah.
You'll just
The elevator.
run over.
Yeah.
Yep.
It still brings me to the elevator. Literally, when I did mine,
Yeah,
the
the
elevator
tripods.
was literally I just couldn't do
The
it.
space elevator.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. With the tripods coming in, you got to knock them back off and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That would be tough.
Just look at you, and like they jump
Especially
on them,
once like 2 or 3 at a time start coming in windows and stuff.
You. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I would say that's it for
Yeah.
Dead Space 2.
Well, okay, I guess like we did we give him a chance to do final
I'm sorry. Yeah.
thoughts?
Go ahead and what's your final thoughts?
Oh,
I'm
final
sorry.
thoughts on Dead Space 2. It's great.
A must play.
We all agree.
It literally action packed. It's you feel that adrenaline rush pretty much the whole game, and the fact that it's impending. You never feel safe. Like at least in Dead Space 1, every once in a while you felt kind of like a little, like if you get to the like if you run out to the dock where you first come in, where the ship first comes in. Enemies never spawn there. You're always safe. This is the one space I know I never have to run for my life. There's not one space.
Yeah.
Like at Dead Space 1, I mean, like you get to walk around for a little bit, before things hit the fan. The game starts with stuff already in the fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You wake up with your face directly in the face.
exactly. It's like, oh wow.
So with that, go play Dead Space 2. It's
Enjoy
awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great game. We very much appreciate everyone for listening, whoever is tuning in. Give us all likes and subscribes and stuff, and go check out our other episodes. And on behalf of myself and Scott and Tyler, we thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Have a great day.
Deuces.